on the ones and twos.
It's the remix. It's the remix. Smell.
Who got the key to the city? Who got the fine face, pretty, pretty? I got the man, them witty, witty. Oh, yeah. Who got the key to the city? Who got the fine face, pretty, pretty? I got the man, them witty, witty. Oh, yeah. The way I wind my body boneless. All your friends, they must confess. I'ma give it to you, so no stress. Get your body right, so rest. The way I wind my body boneless. All your friends, they must confess. I'ma give it to you, so no stress. Get your body right, so rest.
Hey, girl, wind up your body for me, baby. Nah, nah, nah. Oh, nah, nah, nah. You bubble it and get the keys to the city like la, la, la. Oh, nah, nah, nah. Say me say what you want, girl, and me say what you want. You bubble it and rock it down like you want with the law. The way you wind, you representing Mama Africa. Caribbean and then we link up in Canada. Busy remix with the diva from Nigeria. We have the keys to the city, we not come on now. And if you love it, pass a grand and go such a la.
Who got the key to the city? Who got the fine face, pretty, pretty? I got the man, them witty, witty. Oh, yeah. The way I wind my body boneless. All your friends, they must confess. I'ma give it to you, so don't stress. Get your body right. The way I wind my body boneless. All your friends, they must confess. I'ma give it to you, so don't stress. Get your body right.
Say,
DJ Perez.
say my name, baby.
DJ Perez.
Say my name, baby.
DJ Perez.
Smart. Hold on, say my name.
DJ Perez.
It's your favorite DJ, DJ Perez.
Yeah, baby, cool the temper. Baby, no debates. Girl, you make me mental. Girl, you make me crazy. Baby, cool the temper. Baby, no debates. Girl, you make me mental. Girl, you make me crazy. Baby, migrate. Come to my place. I get the high grade. Make you no late. Hey, baby, migrate. Come to my place. I get the high grade. Make you no late. Baby, let's have a good time. Touch me, I touch you time. Do me, I do you time. Baby, just make me feel fine. Baby, let's have a good time. Putting me in the mood time. Making me feel a good time. Trapping, you know, be full time. Balanle. See Balanle. Balanle. Chase Balanle. Balanle.
Online on mobile. Starr Radio UK.
Download our app in iTunes and the Google Play Store.
In London.
Hi there, this is CJ. Hi there, this is CJ Buck. And whenever I'm in London, I listen to Starr Radio UK right here. But guess what? You can listen to wherever you are.
You can get us on our WhatsApp number at 00447539661744.
Do you feel left out in your education or career but still want to do something about it? Then don't fret. If you are a resident in the UK, British or EU citizen, then there is hope for you. You are in the age bracket of 21 to 55. The UK government is offering grants, scholarships and financial support for first degree to masters in various courses. The government will pay all your fees and you can educate yourself in a peace of mind. From £21,000 per year for first degree, etc. Get in touch with GEM Educational Consultancy and we will guide you in applying for this facility. We are situated at 51 Albany Road, Hornchurch. The postcode is RM124AE. Telephone 079 0479 3019 or email us pastorjoeka@yahoo.com. Get financial support and acquire a degree.
Listen to Aunties Mary, Lottie, and Regina on the Family Enrichment Programme on Star Radio UK. This and every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m.
Some people are wicked because don't make it your business going about revealing
people's secrets. Don't be a busybody.
And some people. Today's typical family is under pressure from various directions. Divorce is on the increase. More and more of the Afro-Caribbean youth are taking to crime, etc. The Family Enrichment Program brings together a team of qualified experts to discuss and shed light on how we can make our families better and stronger. It is said the family can do without the society, but the society can't. Listen to the Family Enrichment Program this and every Saturday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Star Radio UK, your favourite Afro-Caribbean radio station in London.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Wow. Good evening and welcome again to another edition of Nigeria Voices, coming live to you straight Star Radio UK, your finest Afro-Caribbean radio station. Today, the 1st of August 2018, and I'm sure if you look on the clock on you, it's exactly 19:05. We say, as usual, a kale to all our listeners from all over the world. You're welcome to another day, another episode, and a very, very interesting one. And Ututu Uma to everyone from the eastern part of the country, and we say Bakadeyama. Once again, there's a lot we're going to be discussing. I've got my guest in-house, and I'm sure a lot of you, when we announced, over a week ago, that we're going to be having a topic that is something that touched the heart of not just those in London or outside London, but almost every part of the world. Housing. Housing is one thing that everyone must have an accommodation, to stay. Without a proper housing, it's very difficult. And that is the reason why we've got Will, in the house. Will, good evening. You're live on the camera now. Good evening.
Good evening.
Wow. Before we take it a little bit, if you just want to, for the benefit of our listeners, who is Will?
Who is Will? My name's Will Harney. I'm a member of a political organisation called the Revolutionary Communist Group. So I'm here to talk about housing and how it relates to capitalism and why why a political communist organisation is involved in the struggle for safe and decent and affordable housing for everyone.
Wow. A decent and affordable housing for everyone. We will look into that, in just about a few minutes. Just to recap, I'm sure, sometimes when I move around and I try to bring what is happening within, like I did say to my viewers and all our followers that we move around. We met during the Green Fall walk. Maybe we could just touch a little bit on that because we know even those in that particular fire and those that survive are still even struggling to get accommodation, which is something that we're going to be talking about. But I met you during the 1-year remembrance of the Greenford Tower. What is your take on that?
That was where we met on the silent walk, which happens every month on the 14th of every month, in commemoration of the lives lost as a result of this disaster, which happened just over a year ago. It's a man-made disaster. It was more than 72 people lost their lives as a result of it, and so many people are still homeless. Like you said, there are actually 99 households who are still waiting in either emergency or temporary accommodation, waiting to be rehoused, even though they were promised last year by the government that they will be rehoused within 3 weeks. They've been waiting for still a year, and there are still, you know, half of the number of those households are still waiting to be rehoused. And it's an issue which the whole country knows about and is shocked by, because I mean I'm not the first person to say that this is a real wake-up call about the way that housing is being mismanaged in Britain, and the conditions of housing, and urgent safety issues that are still a real issue for working class people. You know, there are only 3% of tower blocks similar to Grenfell Tower that have sprinkler systems, for example, and there are so many around the country that still haven't had the same dangerous flammable cladding removed from those buildings. So it's an issue which interests anyone who cares about housing, anyone who has, or just cares about human life and has a conscience, should be shocked by what happens. But I mean, the reason that my group have attended the silent walks, and the reason that we've been involved in the ongoing fight for justice is because, like many others, we recognise that this is it speaks a lot about our society, that so many people could lose their lives, and yet not only are they still yet to see any sign of justice for what happened and the people who are responsible being brought to justice, but they're still waiting to be rehoused. And it seems like that the mechanisms that the government has put in place, like the public inquiry to find out what happened, is very limited, and it's going to ignore some of the real systemic issues about housing and capitalism, which you can't ignore if you're going to say that there should never be another Grenfell disaster.
Wow. Let us look into a little bit about the organization itself. Revolutionary Communist Group. You publish as well in the newspaper called Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism.
I've got a copy here, if I could just... That's what it looks like.
Okay, wow. Fight Racism and Fight Imperialism. Let us, and also, you also try to build a working class movement for socialism in Britain, and also campaign on many issues of basic importance for the working class. Let me put a stop on that. Can you explain a little bit further?
Well, like you said, no one can live without housing. There are many things which are of basic importance to everyone, such as, a place to live, healthcare, education, basic security, and to be able to provide for themselves and their families. And many of these things can't be, and increasingly can't be provided by capitalism, which is why we're a movement which is dedicated and committed to building an alternative to capitalism, namely socialism. So we would say that capitalism itself is not just an unjust and unfair and unequal system. It's actually full of basic contradictions, which mean that it's unsustainable. And just like capitalism once replaced the economic system that came before it, feudalism, this is not the end of history. Capitalism will eventually need to be replaced by another system as well. So our organisation as communists, we're dedicated to building a movement which can replace capitalism with socialism. And the difference is that socialism is a system which is not for profit, which is for providing for the needs of everyone and sharing what we produce equally, instead of the vast majority of what we produce as workers going to a small class of wealthy people who control all of the means of production in our country, and also have a controlling influence over politics and industry. We're here to try and convince people of the urgency to build an alternative to this system.
And do you think in 2018, looking at the global village that we live in now, where we go back to the topic itself that we're going to be looking into, and for those that have just joined us, we're going to be looking at the housing crisis, the estate regeneration, and we've just touched a little bit on the Grenfell Tower itself. My question is, the housing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a real crisis, or is this something that people are just fabricating? Because I see a lot of buildings all the time rising up.
Yeah.
I mean, I move around. You know, I've come all the way from east, come up from Liverpool Street, you come up from Shoreditch, Hackney, even up to Edmonton, Tottenham. There's a lot of buildings. Tell us a little bit about it.
So yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of housing units being built, but many of them are being built for profit, and many of them are empty. So there are thousands and thousands of empty properties in Britain, and actually there's enough housing for every homeless person to be housed without building any more. The thing is, because our housing sector is managed by because it is run for profit, it's increasingly the case that social housing and housing which can be which working class people can afford to rent, to live in, to own, is increasingly scarce because, and we can talk more about the general crisis of capitalism, but because capitalism is struggling to find places to profit from, housing has become a major source of profits and investment, as land prices have increased hugely at the same time. So, for example, in London, you'll see lots and lots of luxury flats and developments being built. It's found that, you know, more than half of the luxury flats and houses that have been built in the last few years have actually remained empty. Now, the reason for this is that they are an investment. So over time they gain value, and they're used as a store for people's value and capital, just so it can be sold on again to someone else in order to make a profit. And this is at the same time as there are increasing numbers of people who are suffering from homelessness or living in unsuitable temporary accommodation. I'm just going to give you a couple of statistics to give kind of an indication of what the housing crisis is looking like in Britain. So we've got since 2010, the number of people who are sleeping rough and homeless has increased by 169%. And the number of families living in temporary accommodation has increased by 61% since 2010, includes more than 3,000 children. And 1.5 million households are on council house waiting lists. Okay, wow. So there is a huge need for this basic human right, which is somewhere to live. But it's not being provided in Britain at the moment, even though people are making huge profits in the housing sector.
Wow, that is a very, very huge statistics you've just given there. The question is, I see housing as one area that affects, and I think is also giving a lot of mental issues. And like you've just mentioned, you've just given us a bit of the breakdown. But maybe if you want to just expatiate a little bit more, because yes, they're building it for profit, but does it mean those that are, I mean, as an example, living in Britain, doesn't have enough money to rent this property, or even, yes, every company wants to make profit.
Yeah.
So
they have to.
And these buildings, money has to be made back off them. So how can we kind of put it in a way that, yes, the crisis is there, but how do we balance it?
Well, I mean, what I would argue, and what we've argued, I was just reading some of these statistics from,
and you're more than welcome to give us as much information from these books or whatever you've got there.
Yeah, this is a pamphlet that our group has just published this year. It's full of really important information, statistics about the housing crisis. It's called Whose Land Is It Anyway? And it explains our perspective on the roots of the housing crisis and how it's rooted in the crisis of capitalism. And we argue in this pamphlet that you can't really balance the need to keep increasing profits with the basic needs of the working class for housing, which is why we have to fight for real socialism, an alternative system, in order to solve the housing crisis. I mean, just to give a bit more explanation of that, essentially what we're seeing in Britain today is the symptoms of what we call the crisis of capitalism. So to understand this, we have a basic need for capital to find profitable outlets for its investment. So like you said, companies want to make a profit, people want to make a profit. In fact, they need to. They can't continue accumulating wealth without reinvesting it. Otherwise, the system just stops. You know, capital has to keep circulating. But since the 1970s, global capitalism has been in a state where it is finding it increasingly difficult to find places where all of that stored up capital can be invested and make a return on that investment. And this is a long-term trend in capital. We, just for an example, the UN just brought out an investment report which explains how foreign direct investment in the developed nations, but globally as well, has dropped sharply in the last few years, mainly because of falling rates of profit all over the world. In every region, there is less and less places to invest your capital and make a return on it. Now, what does this have to do with housing in Britain? Well, we're in a crisis of capital, and land and housing is a perfect receptacle, a deposit for the surplus value that capitalists make through their businesses and storing up their profits. And as they're unable to secure any profitable outlets through productive investment, housing is a perfect place to store their money. Now, what you see is you get land prices increasing massively because people are buying it and then leaving it without building anything on it. You've got a huge amount of land in London that is owned by investment companies, banks, and they wait for its value to increase before selling it on to developers. So by the time developers or anyone with planning permission to build houses gets a hold of the land and takes ownership of it, the only way that they can build something profitably is to build luxury flats that no one can really afford to live in. Not only this, but you've got so much land in London in particular with housing estates on it and social housing, and the fact is that the land that the housing is sitting on and the working class communities that live on that land, they're in the way of maximising the profit that can be gained from investing in that land. So because the price of land is rising so quickly, there is an increasing pressure for councils to sell off the land to private developers and to demolish housing estates and to remove working class communities that live on those estates so that more profitable forms of construction can take place on that land. And that's why we're seeing such an intensification of the drive to regenerate housing estates. It's so-called regeneration schemes where working class communities will be decanted, removed from housing estates, and they'll be demolished and rebuilt, usually with a significant reduction in the number of affordable housing at social rents, because essentially there's a need for more profitable forms of housing, and social housing is not very profitable to the developers.
Okay, so in terms of looking at these issues, what I want us to, yes, there's problem with these crises, the housing crisis. What is the government doing about it?
So the government, I mean, if we're talking about national government and local government, in both cases they're making it worse. So if you look at, for example, over the past 40 years or so, the amount of social housing in Britain has collapsed. Most of it's been sold off or demolished. Even in the last few years, we've lost, huge thousands and thousands of social housing units instead of building more. Now, part of the problem is that the government has set up various schemes to subsidise people to buy their own homes. For example, right to buy or help to buy. What these essentially do is subsidise the transfer of public housing into private hands, and often even the people who buy these homes, they will end up being bought up by large private landlords. These policies of subsidising the transfer of private house, it's just another form of privatisation that the national government has been carrying out, like the many other forms of privatisation that have happened during, the crisis of capitalism, such as privatisation of education and healthcare. Local governments have a special role to play in all of this. Because the local councils own the land on which social housing is built. They basically, capital needs their cooperation in order to redevelop that land. And what you see shamefully is so many councils, in fact in London the majority of these councils are Labour councils, assisting private developers and setting up schemes in which they can privatise large amounts of public land in order and to assist essentially with the social cleansing of those areas. So you see examples like the Aylesbury estate in Southwark, which is run by a Labour council. It was announced that they were going to demolish it from 2005, and huge resistance was put up by the local residents, but many of those buildings on the Aylesbury estate are now empty, waiting to be demolished, despite political action by groups including the RCG and local residents who organised to occupy empty flats on the estate. This is the local governments often have a role of facilitating the social cleansing, so they will ensure that the ideal of regeneration is sold and packaged in a way that makes it sound very appealing, like you're going to improve people's homes, rebuild them better, but in reality often many of the people who are moved off the estate will not be able to come back. They won't be protected from rising rent. They won't be able to get their homes back in the same terms that they had before, and in practice what happens is that there's a process of gentrification, and many people from those working class communities aren't able to return to their homes simply because the land that they live on is worth so much to developers.
There's one area that when I travel through kind of makes me wonder whether I've just country, and that is Elephant and Castle.
Yeah.
I mean, I came in around 98 and I spent my first Christmas, just close to the, station itself. And looking at the way the whole area has been transformed, families have been moved around, and it makes you wonder, for how long will this continue?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, this process of, as I said, the need for profitable outlets for investment is going to exist for as long as capitalism needs somewhere to invest all of its capital, and housing is just too good an opportunity for them to pass up, and that economic situation is not going to change unless there is massive changes to society and to the global economy. Now, you mentioned, Elephant and Castle. There's been incredible and brave campaigns by local people to resist the regeneration, the redevelopment of Elephant and Castle, including, alliance of students, working class residents of the housing estates, who found that the social housing was going to be decimated on the estate, and also local market traders who would be pushed out by this redevelopment. And they have managed to put a huge amount of pressure on the local council, again a Labour council, which has facilitated this huge redevelopment on behalf of Delancey, which is a multinational firm. The question is, the answer to when it will stop is when people are able to organise and fight back, and brilliant examples of that have been seen at Elephant and Castle, at Aylesbury, at the Haringey development vehicle in North London, where again a Labour council tried to push through measures to sell off one of the biggest privatisations of public land in history to an Australian multinational company called Lend-Lease, and it was stopped by determined local resistance. Another example is at in Newham, in the borough of Newham, where a determined struggle was put up by a group of local campaigners called Focus E15, who we've worked with as well to oppose the sell-off and destruction of the Carpenter's estate, which would remain empty for years, and they occupied it and it made national news. The point is that people, if we join together, if we join the dots in these struggles and organise a bigger movement against all social cleansing, well, that's when things will start to really change.
Wow. If people join to make that impact, we will touch on that in just about a few minutes. The question is also, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, I want you to give me what is your take on them.
Okay.
And we'll come back on that. For those of you, if you've just joined us, that is Will, of the Revolutionary Group, where we've been looking at some of the issues that got to do with housing crisis, right here in London. Also, there's a lot of things happening in Nigeria. We will update you. We're going live to Lagos at about 8 p.m. So you want to stay tuned so that you can be able to get the development of what is happening in Nigeria. The president, Muhammad Buhari, will be in London on a 10-day holiday. Also, we saw all the drama taking place in Abuja, where the Senate president has become back to PDP. Two governors, within the last 24 hours, the Kwara State governor, and also we know today, also the Sokoto State governor have decamped from their APC back to PDP. What is all this about? We will look into that. But right now, we're still looking at, some of the, crises where the housing has been one of the biggest issue, in London. Not only in London and not only just in United Kingdom, but around the world. I still have Will in the studio with me. Let's take this short commercial break. And when we come back, we will look at, the meaning of, what democracy is. Because, if they have a different perspective to democracy, I'm sure Will be able to tell us a little bit about that. Let's just take this short commercial break.
Chronometer put you today on 813-852-8588. We specialize in imaginative and creative ideas as well as knowledge of current fashion trends. We make and design for all age and gender. Call us today, you'll be glad you did. Thank you.
That is Omita. Make sure if you're looking at some of the designs coming out from Africa. I was listening to Lagos State government saying they want to have made in Nigeria. Well, all this is all about making sure that we can give you up to date of information. We will also tell you the rounds of a lot of activities happening during the summer. But as you can see on your screen with me, I still have my guest in house with me. Will, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just before we went on that short break, I was asking you, what is your take on democracy?
My take on democracy? I'm a supporter of democracy.
Okay.
We need more democracy in this country, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I can talk about it generally, and in relation to housing, I mean, we've had examples of where there hasn't been enough democracy in balloting residents about whether their housing should be redeveloped, or sometimes this is used as a way to kind of facilitate and kind of manufacture consent for redevelopment without really getting a representative view of what people really want, especially when they're not presented with the information they need to make an informed choice. But I think that's symptomatic of a bigger problem in British democracy, or democracy under capitalism. So as I say, you know, as a member of the Revolutionary Communist Group, I would believe that democracy is really compromised under capitalism, not only by all the big money in politics, the influence that big capital has over the parties, political parties. I mean, take an example, the Tory party receives more than 50% of its funding in donations from the financial industry, so we know whose interests they represent. The Labour Party as well receives many of its donations from wealthy individuals or from the largest trade unions, whose interests ultimately they will be beholden to. If we're talking about what does democracy mean in Britain or under socialism, under the system that we argue for, I'll give you an example. So you can read about this in the latest issue of our paper, but Cuba is just going through important political reforms. They're having a big consultation about their constitution, because they've over the last 10 years or so, they've been restructuring their economy, trying to attract investment. They've been making reforms to their political system, to their economic system, and they have to redraw the constitution in order to take account of these changes. Now, to do that, they've got their National Assembly, which is made up of delegates from all over their country, ordinary people who've been nominated by the local communities to take part in this participatory process. They don't run political campaigns with donations and things like that. You're just elected by your, your community, and they will look at all of the proposals for changes to the constitution. They will resubmit it to a huge public consultation where everyone in the country will be invited to submit feedback in what they think should change with the constitution, and then it will be put back to the National Assembly to take account of this feedback, and then it will go to a public referendum. Now, this is how they are ensuring that all of the changes that they make to their economy and their society are democratic and made democratically. Things like changing the way that they use rationing or welfare, the way that they manage small businesses and things like that. Now, in Britain, we've undergone a similar process of radical economic restructuring and change over the last 7 or 8 years, a process called austerity, in which public services have been decimated, where you've had mass privatization, where funding has been cut to the essential public services that people rely on. And was there any public consultation about this? Was the whole population invited to take part in consultation about it, or to decide how our society should be changed? I wasn't asked. I don't think anyone else was consulted about it, apart from the mandate that one government got in 2010. And both political parties, the opposition and Conservatives, have both, pushed through all of these reforms totally willingly, with very little public consultation. I mean, I say that's not a democratic process. One of the things that in Cuba they said was they will make sure that there won't be what they call shock therapy. There won't be all these neoliberal reforms that many other Latin American countries have been forced to endure by their governments on behalf of the IMF or the World Bank, in order to restructure their economies, pushing through privatization and sell-offs of their public services and national resources. Again, that's not democratic, and one of the things that we could learn from Cuba is, like, how do we have what does democracy really look like when the whole working class, the whole of the people in the country, have some kind of participation in some of the fundamental changes happening to their society?
Wow. If you've just joined us, again, we're live on Starr Radio UK and it's Niger Voices, and we're looking at a special crisis in housing, capitalism, and some of the crises. Maybe for the young generation that are just coming up, capitalism was something have it on here because we know it's just one straight.
We don't know anything else.
So, how do we, get people to understand that that is there in terms of the capitalism itself?
So to understand capitalism, I mean, deliberate capitalism isn't something that we're supposed to understand because it's an exploitative system. If you're a working class person, then you're one of the people who produces the wealth in society, but unfortunately most of what you produce is it goes to the ruling class. I mean, that's how capitalism works. So for example, you might work for a company with shareholders, and the wealth that you produce through your daily work, the money that you generate for this company will mostly go to the owners, and they'll give you a small amount back in wages, which then you'll have to give to your landlord, to businesses, so you can buy the things that you rely on to survive. A lot of the money just finds its way back to the top.
So is it recycling back, and it's not coming back to the pocket of that working class that you just...
No, I mean, increasingly they can afford to give us less and less, the capitalists. There's an issue article in the latest issue of our paper which I wrote about inequality in Britain and internationally, how inequality has risen so much over the years. There's a lot of alarming statistics about it that have come out. Not my own research. This is from the Office for National Statistics and other groups. So, for example, 50%, the poorest 50% of people in Britain own just 8.7% of Britain's wealth. And the poorest 20% of households in this country actually saw their wealth decline in real terms over a 2-year period that the Office for National Statistics studied. Meanwhile, at the top of the ladder, the wealthiest 10% own the same amount as 290 times more than the poorest 10%. This is what class society looks like, and it's what capitalism looks like, because it's the way that capitalism has to work. And this level of inequality won't be solved without just a fundamental change, because there's no way that they can stop making profits. They have to. And as I said before, when I was talking about crisis in capitalism, they're running out of places to invest their capital that they can profit from. The rate of profit all over the world is in decline long term, particularly actually very quickly in the last few years. And the result of this is that they can afford to spare less and less to give to the working class. And what that means is that, we need to think about the alternative. We need to think about having a classless society, a society where people don't exploit each other, and where we share the wealth equally instead of. And
I'm just going to take you I'm going to take you on there, because if you say sharing that wealth, and the reason why I'm going to take you on is even those that are living outside Britain, as an example, where we know even in most of the African countries there's vast amount of wealth, and I don't I want you to get your view on that. But yet we see in their thousands, I don't want to use in their millions, but in their thousands, still trying to get to Britain. And it kind of wonder, we've got the wealth on the other side of the continent, and even those in this other part of this continent are struggling, with the housing crisis, the inequality that is, taking place. And we've not even looked at the racism aspect, which we might be able to touch, as well. What is your take on that?
Well, there's a huge number of questions there, but it's really important to explain why. I mean, this touches on why our newspaper is called Fight Racism, Fight
I just maybe show
Imperialism.
that to my viewers there.
So it's
that is the
the reason we have imperialism up there in the title is because Britain is an imperialist country. Now, what does that mean? We used to have a formal British Empire under the Crown, which was a huge empire that extracted huge amounts of wealth from the rest of the world, which flowed into Britain, and it was the basis of that that allowed Britain to become a global superpower with very advanced capitalist industry and so on, so much quicker than many other nations. Now, the thing is that process of wealth extraction hasn't ended. That's why what makes us still an imperialist country. So I'll just give you a few examples. Between 1980 and 2012, the net flow of capital from developing to developed nations was $16.3 trillion. So that means $16.3 trillion flowed out of the so-called developing world to the developed world. In other words, from the countries of the global south into the imperialist nations like the US, Britain, and European nations. Just take the example of Africa. So Global Justice Now did a study, and they found that Africa subsidizes the imperialist nations to the tune of $40 billion per year. Nations in the southern region of Africa receive about $160 billion in investment aid, etc., but they lose $203 billion per year through not only from the profits extracted from those from businesses that have investments there and have a stake in their national resources, but also debt and illicit capital flows. Now, all of this means that Britain's wealth is built on imperialism. It's extracted from other countries. Now, your original question was about, what does this mean for? I mean, you mentioned racism, for example. Now, again, racism is in the title of our paper because this whole system of extraction of wealth, it can't work without racism. Racism is a tool that the ruling class need in order to make sure that imperialism can be defended, okay, and the profits that they extract from the rest of the world can be defended. The reason they invest so much of their capital in the rest of the world, by the way, is because the rate of profit in those countries is much higher. The rate of exploitation, in other words, because labour might be cheaper, there might be fewer environmental regulations, or red tape standing in their way, and the result is that they're able to extract higher rates of profit. Now, you can't sustain this system of exploitation without racism. It doesn't work. If people weren't divided from each other by racism, then they would quickly recognise their common cause and fight back, which is what we argue for, is that the working class in Britain should make common cause with the people of the rest of the world who are exploited by imperialism and join the struggle against capitalism. Now, that means that in order to defeat racism, we have to recognise what imperialism is and we have to resist it. As for you talked about immigration as well,
which I was
so
going to looking at your paper, Immigration in Europe, Fight Racist Border Controls.
Yeah. So naturally, because so much of the wealth that is extracted from developing nations comes here, people follow the money,
I love that.
People
follow the money.
Well, this is where economic comes into it. The kind of opportunities, development, quality of life afforded by the super profits of imperialism is a huge attraction to the people of the world who are living in nations which have been underdeveloped. Okay, they're called developing nations, but they develop Britain, they develop the US, they develop Europe, because their wealth is being used to develop the imperialist nations. And of course, people in those nations are drawn by the economic opportunities and so on. But the thing is, the reason we say we oppose racist border controls is because for Britain to put up all of the barriers that it does to immigration, not just the borders, not just the passport controls and so on, the immigration prisons which exist like Yarl's Wood, Brookhouse, etc., but also all of the border controls within Britain, such as less access to the same kinds of employment as the native working class, so to speak. Migrants not having the same access to healthcare or to education, having to pay for the NHS and things like that. All of these are basically stopping migrants from accessing the super profits of imperialism. So it's necessarily racist to enforce these kinds of barriers which stop people from having the same opportunities. And it's not just about, I mean, racism isn't just about it is, you know, it's an attitude, and it's a hatred, but it's also a systematic inequality between two groups of people, and that inequality has to be maintained in order for the system of exploitation to work.
And you know, thank you very much for your time as well. You know, to come and you know, explain some of these issues. Last week Friday, you know, there was a protest. You know, there's always a protest, one going on almost all the time out there.
And we're RCG are usually there.
So you will tell me when your next one is coming up, and we can have that in the diary as well.
Yeah.
But there was a particular one, you know, because we're still on that immigration, and that's why you know, where, you know, the EU are paying about £65 for you know, home office application fee, and the non-EU are paying up to 1,650. And we've seen a lot of you know, especially from the, you know, African community, that are going into depression, because, you know, a mother, a father, two children, to renew their application with the home office will cost about 1,650. Is this part of this control, you know, system, or what?
It is, yeah, absolutely. We've written, I mean, not only in the current issue, we've got an article about what's been happening with Windrush. We're trying to keep it in the public eye. But in the previous issues as well, we've talked all about the history of the system of immigration controls. Now, you know, even on both sides of the political spectrum in Britain, in mainstream politics, even the Labour Party have been using, you know, they're kind of beating around the bush, trying to say that, well, there's the Windrush generation, but they want to distinguish those from so-called illegal immigrants, and they're only on the side of some people, and they're not on the side of the others. But the fact is that they need to show common cause with all migrants, whether they're documented or not. And yeah, we've been involved in protests for not just in London, but in other parts of the country as well, to advocate for, you know, the right of all people from the Windrush generation to stay here. It's an ongoing issue, and you'll see if you read in our latest issue, there's not been many assurances from the Home Office about, they haven't actually managed to contact that many of the people who they believe to be affected by this issue, and
because all this issue is still also, you know, just to take us back to our you know, original topic, because if you're having, you know, problem, everything still goes back, you know, with the crisis, the housing crisis, and all these you know, situation, because looking at the you know, some of the, you know, change of the law, you know, a few years back, where, you know, you have to prove to a landlord before you know, you get into a property. Even the property in the first place is difficult to get in. You know, maybe you want to talk on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of the examples of where you have racist border controls stopping migrants from accessing the same resources, and creating this systematic inequality, including, you know, stopping people from getting onto social housing waiting lists, not needing to, you know, even the Labour Party has proposed that people should have a local connection to get onto social housing waiting lists, which is an implicitly racist idea. It should be, housing is a human right.
Online, on mobile, soon on DAB. This is Star Radio UK, the leading African Caribbean radio station.
I know we haven't got much time left, but I still want you to talk about your group, and also as we're wrapping up, to give us a little bit of your closing remark. Maybe you might want to start about a little bit about your group, maybe for the benefit of those that are listening to us now.
So the Revolutionary Communist Group has been around since 1974. We've published our newspaper since 1979, Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism. We've always fought for the basic needs of the working class in Britain and to build an anti-imperialist movement to fight against many of the issues and fight for many of the causes that I've mentioned today. We're a political organisation that is growing. We have branches all around the country, and you can, if you're interested in getting involved in our work, we have a website called revolutionarycommunist.org, and there's a sign-up form now. It says join the RCG. If you fill in your details, your local RCG branch will be in contact with you. We have always fought on issues about housing, immigration and British imperialism. One of our formative struggles was in the non-stop picket against apartheid in the 1980s, so fighting against the British state's involvement in apartheid South Africa. But even today we're still fighting the same kind of causes because we still live under the same system that we did so many years ago. So we're trying to build a revolutionary movement. By that we mean, a movement that can replace capitalism with an alternative system, and we're active up and down the country, like I said. We've got an excellent newspaper you can subscribe to, and if you're interested a lot of the things that I've said about housing today come from the excellent work done by some of my comrades who've written this and researched a housing pamphlet called Whose Land Is It Anyway?
Well, we will be able to get that.
You can order it from our website. It's, I think, £4.35, including postage, but check our website shop. You can also find, you can buy it from one of our local street stalls. We run public street stalls around the city. You can find out where they are from our website, and you can purchase it from them and talk to us about communism and whatever else interests you.
Just before you go, there's a lot of development happening in Nigeria, and the question is, maybe just to get your mind there first, is should we have power to recall any public official? And before you answer that, just yesterday we had a sitting Senate president that was decamp from the political party that he got on to the post. Is now gone back to PDP, and we have governors like that as well. And not just in Nigeria, maybe also in Europe and in Britain, where we live as well. Should we have power to recall any public official?
Yes, I think we should have the power to recall any public official. This is I talked about Cuba earlier. In Cuba they have the power to recall any public official, called the right of withdrawal. They have exercised this right many times. It's actually something which any socialist should support, because it was something that Karl Marx himself advocated, that we shouldn't just have politicians who can do whatever they want and stay in power, that any public official should be able to be withdrawn if the people that they're supposed to represent want them to. Absolutely, I would support that.
Wow. In about a minute or two, just to those that are listening and watching us from any part of the world, your last message out there.
My last message would be that if you're a person, we've been talking about housing, if you live in social housing, if you live in a housing estate in London and you're under threat of demolition, just remember that you're living on a gold mine and you stand in the way of people from making great profits, and that gives you a lot of power. So there are many other people in the same situation. Join together with them. You have many allies. If you join together, you can be an obstacle and you can stand in the way of regeneration, social cleansing. You have the power to do that, and the RCG will be there to stand with you.
Wow. Well, that is Will that have joined us on a special 1st of August 2018. We're going to say thank you very much for making it down into Starr Radio UK, and we hope next time when we call you, you'll definitely be coming.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Your next event, do you have a date for it, or is it something?
We have an event coming up this Saturday, actually.
Okay.
This is one thing that I haven't talked about at all today is Palestine. Now, there've been a lot of things going on in Palestine recently.
Please, you still have few seconds or minute if you want to touch on that.
What I mean, the main thing is, that Israel has put into law many things which make Palestinians second-class citizens. This is the ongoing apartheid in Palestine, and we're going to be demonstrating in solidarity with Palestinian people on Oxford Street this Saturday from 1 p.m. So we're going to be at the Marks and Spencers on Oxford Street. Come and join us and show solidarity with the Palestinian people.
Wow, thank you very much. And we will, before we let we'll take a bow. Once again, if you've just joined us, as usual, is Olayomi Koike. We bring you what is happening within the community. We look for people that can come and tell us the reality. And in the last 1 hour, we've been having this conversation with Will, where he has taken us through some of the issues surrounding the housing crisis in the United Kingdom. This is an organization where a revolutionary communist group, and they publish in the newspaper, and some of those details we will be putting out as well. We will take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we will then go fire to fire, because we're going live to Lagos. There's a lot of development happening. There's a lot of breaking news in Nigeria. We also can confirm that the president will be in London, for a 10-day holiday, according to his, media assistant, Shehu Gaba and Femi Adesina. Stay tuned, but let's listen to Under Pressure by Raskimono. And when we come back, we will then go live to Lagos. We will give you the update as well as is happening in Nigeria today. Once again, as usual, my name is Olayomi Koike. Let's take this short break right now.
Yeah, man. I have been compelled to sing to this reggae after seeing all what's going in Africa.
Online, on mobile, soon on DAB. This is Starr Radio UK, the leading African Caribbean radio station. Online, on mobile, soon on DAB. This is Starr Radio UK, the leading African Caribbean radio station.
Yes, we are still live in the studio. It's Under Pressure. In just about a few minutes or so, I'm going to give you the update as is happening in Nigeria. We look at a lot of development as the election is getting closer.
In our pocket, no bed, we ate. The people, they must have suffer in a ghetto, in a city.
Well, the most important news is, we know the president, will be coming to London. The Senate president has now become a member of PDP.
Under pressure, we will under pressure. Under pressure, everybody under pressure. Under pressure, black and white under pressure. Under pressure, Europeans under pressure.
Why is it that everywhere is real under pressure? That's Rasky Monomy, so rest in peace. Well, the most thing is, according to the Twitter handling of the Senate President Mustola Saraki, it is my hope that APC will respect the choice that I have made as my democratic right and understand that even though we now occupy a different political space, we do not necessarily become enemies unto one another. You could join this this studio line is 0208 133 2257. The WhatsApp line is +4475 94050 Everywhere is under pressure.
Online, on mobile, Swan DAB. This is Star Radio UK, the leading African Caribbean radio station.
Has there been any response from the federal government, with all this decamping from one end to another? We will have someone joining us. As soon as I get a signal, I will be connecting straight away. Okay, I could go live to also the PDP. Let's listen a little bit from the Transcorp Hilton Hotel. This is a breaking news. Let us see if we can get a bit of that news coming all the way where the PDP is speaking right now at the Transcorp Hilton Hotel. Is a venue of a dinner reception in honor of the returnees. Is that not really an interesting time? Let's say maybe we might just get a little bit of that snap of what is happening in Abuja, where they're also already giving a rosy welcome to those that left PDP.
And they are not there. You can see that there is no government. The government is broken. The APC is broken. And we won't talk like them. We won't talk like them. We've ruled the country. We know our people. We know what they want. We are not going to talk like them. You are also aware that Sokoto governor and members of State House of Assembly and the leadership of Sokoto are also giving. Are they bothered? They are not bothered. And also they are not losing sleep. You are aware that Kano.
That is live at the Transcorp Hilton Hotel as we're getting a signal of those that have just returned back to PDP having a reception honor, live all the way from Abuja.
To South Africa, resigned and defected to PDP. They are not bothered. I just want to let you know that, don't go there, that we're expecting more states. They will be bothered. And we will win the election in 2019. Will they be bothered? They don't have the interest of Nigerians at heart. They don't have the interest of the people at heart.
Well, if you've just joined us, we are still connected live to Abuja. Like we say, we have, all our media on standby, and we're still waiting for one signal all the way from Lagos. As soon as I get that signal, we will be coming up from these live broadcast as it's coming also in Abuja, where dinner reception in honor of the returnees. Also, we're going to take you to where we're going to play a little bit clip from what took place again from Abuja with all the young presidential aspirant, and we will also listen to a clip from that. Let us continue to listen to the one from Abuja.
Because you are standing with Nigerians on the path of truth and justice, equity, fairness. And of course, APC believe in injustice. APC believe in nepotism. APC believe in bloodletting. Nothing is happening. They don't know. They are not aware. They kill several hundreds of people in Plateau. They are not aware. In Zamfara, they are killing every day. Are they aware? They are not aware. In Benue, it's a daily thing, a daily routine. People are dying every day. In Taraba, they are dying every day. They are not aware. So we want to.
Well, that is a little bit from what is happening. There's a lot of breaking news happening, all the way in Nigeria. As we know, the election is getting closer. It's getting closer, day by day. And also, we know on Monday, Showore, met with leading youth candidate. Also, a party announcement to occur by August the 15th, which is exactly 14 days away from today. Also, there was quite a lot of discussion with Feladuro Toye. Remember, we had Feladuro Toye with me on Star Radio UK. And Lester Shoyode was also at that meeting. Quite a number of presidential aspirant was in that meeting, and we hope to be following the development on that as well. As soon as we have also can confirm that there's quite a lot of people that are asking the question, especially the diaspora, whether you have the right to vote. If you cannot get to Lagos or Nigeria before August the 17th as a diaspora, I can confirm that you might not be able to vote because you have to register to allow you to vote. At the moment, you cannot register outside the country. You can only register inside, the country itself. So for you that asking a lot of questions whether you will be able to vote, you might have to travel to Nigeria to be able to do that. So make sure you find your way. It's a holiday period. Yes, the election is still over 200 days away, but can we get a diaspora voting in 2023? That as well we must look into because the question is, with over 22 million diaspora and with the amount of forex that we are remitting back into the country, we need to start asking a lot of questions why we cannot just register to vote the same way. It looks like I've got a signal coming all the way from Lagos, and I can connect straight to my thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Adeyanju Femi. Thank you very much. Loud and clear. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you, sir?
Well, I can only be fine because there's a lot of breaking news. I could tell you on my right-hand screen here, a venue of dinner reception in honor of the returnees and the new entrance into PDP. There's a lot of issues that we're going to talk about. We have enough time. I know we haven't had conversation in the last few weeks, but maybe to start with, for the benefit of my listeners, I know you are in Lagos because you just came back from Abuja. Whether you were in that all these meetings that is happening, Abuja seems to be under fire. We also know that the president is on his way to London. I don't know where you want to start from, what you want to discuss, but the election is going to be real. People are moving political party. More people are being asked to vote, but to enable them to vote, like I was saying before, you came on air, to the diaspora that are living outside the country, you can only vote if you can get to Nigeria before August the 17th. I give you the headway to let us kickstart now.
Yeah, Yomi, thank you very much. It's nice to be back with you on this program. In the last few weeks, a whole lot has been happening politically, and I will call it political earthquake. And it's good. It's good for Nigeria because a whole lot of things are wrong. And like I said earlier in the earlier interviews, that a lot of secret meetings politically were going on. Some of the events in the last few weeks are the manifestations of those secret political meetings, realignment, negotiations, and the rest of it. Well, however, whatever we are seeing now, it's still a tip of the iceberg of what is to come. I can tell you so many things will still happen. Again, I sincerely have my fears, because it's unfortunate. Those, for example, look at the recession that is currently going on for PDP returnees. Please, be honest. Let's be honest with ourselves. Among these people that are being celebrated by PDP today, mention one person that has made impact in Nigeria in the last 10 years, or mention one person, you understand me, that has contributed positively to the life of a man in Samaru Zaria, to the life of a man in Kokomaiko in Lagos, to the life of a man in Ikodepene, to the life of a man in Borno, in Sapogeri in Kano. None of them. Rather, these are crop of people that has contributed to the downfall of this nation through corruption. And it's a show of shame that PDP, that we all thought to have learned a whole lot of lessons, are the ones celebrating looters. For me, sincerely speaking, I feel so ashamed. And this is why I am totally against PDP. I am totally against APC, because I tell you the truth, the two parties are the same crop of people that has ruined this country, and there is a need for a second order. Not even, I hear people talking about third order. We don't need any third order. We need a second order, because the second order has to be the young generation of this country has to arise as the credible opposition to these looters. The PDP, they are the same. So the second order, which I see in form of the young Nigerians, must come together to rise up and challenge this old order, these looters. And I am so pleased, sincerely speaking, I'm pleased with the meeting of negotiations or coalition that is about to be formed by the young people, the show warriors and the Duro, and it's a sign. It's for me, sincerely speaking, I am so pleased. Okay, with what is going on. And to be honest with you, I've been speaking with a few of them. Showore is my man. I've given him my word. He's my man. But I've also told him that for anything's sake, we all have to reach a coalition, whether it is you or not you. You understand me? We must unite and have a common voice or a common force to fight the common enemy. And the common enemy in Nigeria are these looters. And they are all in PDP and they are all in APC. The two parties have failed this country. I must be honest with you.
I just want to cut in there.
So it's really
just about a few minutes. Just bear with me. I wanted to say I'm just, because as we're talking, I'm following also what is happening in things that it looks like everything is breaking in Nigeria. I'm just reading a tweet which I'm sure you might be able to listen to as well. This is a Daily Momodo 22 minutes ago. Politics is a game that should be enjoyed, because the foolish people killing themselves and attacking everyone forget that these leaders still meet and are friends.
True. Very true. And that was why I said earlier, very true. Daily Momodu is very correct, 100% correct there. I tell you the honest truth. Whoever will believe that Tinubu and Buhari will ever be in the same car or in the same party, not to talk of being on the same table. Nobody ever can believe that. But today they are best of friends. Who will ever believe that?
Wow, it looks like
I'm surprised if tomorrow you hear I mean, so all these politicians, be it in PDP, be it in APC, they are all the same. They are best of friends. They meet in the night. They both loot. The thing they have in common is looting this country. And once it comes to looting, when it comes to embezzlement, they are best of friends. So for me, and that was why I said the young people of this, the show warrior of this nation, the guru of this nation, and the others must unite as an alternative force, an alternative and credible force against these looters. And that is where I stand. And I am telling you, I am saying it to the whole world. Pastor Femi Adeyonju will support any young person against these looters, and I will go to any length. I will go to anywhere in this nation to campaign vigorously for any young person. I cannot stand the articles of this world. I cannot stand all this tambowa of this world. I cannot stand all these people, all these names, all these people that have been bangling themselves around that they want to be president of Nigeria. They are all losers. They are all looters. They can't take Nigeria to the next level, and that is why I see consistently. I have been saying it, and I will still say it tonight. The young people must rise now to take over the leadership of this country, and this is the trend around the whole world now. The young people are the ones taking over because. Look, I've said the times without number. Power is not given to anybody. You must go fight for it and take it, and that is what as young Nigerians we must do. And I'm so happy, and I want to use this opportunity to appeal to Showore, to appeal to Duro, and appeal to every other person that let's bury our ego, let's bury our personal belief, let's bury our personal plan for a coalition so that we can have a better force, we can have a common voice to fight the enemy. And this is where I stand, Yomi.
Wow. Okay. Let us look at, I know, there will always be, the moment the Senate president, defected back to PDP, we saw that from Kwara State. We saw the APC spokesman as well, and this afternoon we saw Shokoto as well. In terms of all these development taking place, you are on ground right now, and what is the feelings of the youth? Because I'm sure the youth will be looking at all this situation. What are you hearing on ground? What are the things that people are discussing? From the corner shop down there to the to the vendor, to the beer parlor talk. What are people discussing? Because the election, from the information gathered as well, in the next couple of weeks, we must know who is contesting. So I'll let you carry on from there. Hello?
Hello, I can hear you. Yes. I say, before I answer your question, it is so disheartening to hear that somebody. Can you hear me?
We can still hear you loud and clear.
Hello?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So, it is so disheartening that is being touted as the icon of democracy in Nigeria. We have and all these people Tamboa, Benue, and Kwara cross-carpeting to PDP. I tell you, all these things are for selfish interest. There is nothing about national interest in any of this cross-carpeting. They are all jostling for tickets. They know it was just the same that happened in 2015. They discovered that APC is a sinking ship, so they better jump out of the ship before it sank, and that is what they are doing. So I am sincerely, it doesn't add any value to the political equation on the line. About an hour ago, I was in a discussion with some group of people, and they were so pissed off. They were so pissed off. I said, look, we just have to do it. I was just laughing at them. I said, we are not yet ready for a young person. And they kept telling me that, look, they are not going to vote for PDP. They are not going to vote for APC. And I was so pleased in my heart that if people on the street can begin to think like this, and I said, then we have a future in Nigeria. So for me, sincerely speaking, for all these governors cross-carpeting from one party to another, they are all doing it for selfish and personal interest. There is nothing that has to do with national interest. Let me ask you a question. Saraki as Senate president today, in the last 3 years that he has been the Senate president, what impact has he made? For example, his responsibility is to make laws for this nation. Plenty people have been sacked under this current government. The APC controls the federal. They control the legislature. They are the majority in both arms of the of National Assembly, the Senate and the rest, and they are the majority. They control about 2/3 of the states, which means APC is in control. One single party is in control of about 2/3 of the nation. What impact has Saraki, or what laws has Saraki made for Nigerians? For example, many of them were unlawfully disengaged from office, and we have laws. I'm not sure we have laws that takes care of people who can defend themselves, or who can go to court, or who can really stand on any law in Nigeria to prevent them being sacked. Many of them were victimization. What impact has the Senate have on our economy? That's Saraki leads. What impact have they made? For me, I can't see anything. Rather, what I see is billions of naira that people are elected every time they sit. And it's so unfortunate. I say it again. This current government, led by President Buhari, what impact has they made in this country? And I keep asking this question. And I've not seen anybody that still supports this current administration to tell me one thing that this government has done that is positive, that has added value to anybody's life in this nation. For example, the Abacha loot that was brought in, $324 million that was given to this current government. It is so shameful to hear that my President Buhari, says that he was going to share that money into people's account. What a shallow-minded decision. Can that money, if that money is channeled to a Jakarta Steel Company, Ajakuta Steel Company requires about $600 million to complete that project. That project is 98% completed. It needs only about $600 million to complete Ajakuta. That Ajakuta, directly and indirectly, can provide over 6 million jobs. Why can't this this is just common sense, Yomi. Why can't this Abacha loot be channeled to Ajakuta? And that is about 50% of what is needed to complete it. For goodness sake, what is wrong with us in this country? What is wrong with us in this country? We have leaders that lack common sense. We have leaders that do not see vision, that cannot see tomorrow from today. Current leaders around the world now, they see decades ahead from today. Our own leaders, they can't even see tomorrow from today. It's a shame. It's a shame. And that is why I keep saying it. I will support a young person, dynamic, strong, visionary, that is ready to see decades ahead from today. And that is where I stand, Shem. So for me, all these people cross-carpeting, it doesn't have any political value. They are looking for their personal pocket. And I tell you the truth, Nigerians slowly are mulling this now.
Wow. As we're still live in Lagos, we're also going to be live again in Lagos after this conversation, but I still have Mr. Femi with me to to give me as much of what is happening on ground. Also, we're going to be speaking to David Duarte, some of the diaspora that are coming home, doing great things. They had the first game of the football that they are participating. With youth in Nigeria. He traveled with his team. They had one in Surulere. I'm going to be speaking to him just before 9 p.m. Mr. Femi, this election is going to be real. What I want to find out is, we're going to be on ground as well, very soon, and we will keep you up to date. But is INEC prepared? Is INEC
to be honest
prepared
with you,
for this election in 2019? We've seen,
we
saw what took place in Ekiti. I know Osun State is coming up, if I'm right, very soon.
Yes.
Is INEC prepared for 2019?
What happened in Ekiti is really a shame. It's really a shame. It's really a shame. Well, we will see what will happen in Osun. But to be honest with you, from what I see on ground, I do not think INEC is ready. Shame. I can tell you that over 50 million people will vote in this election coming next year. I can tell you that authoritatively. More than double the people that voted in 2015 will vote this year, because hunger has taught a lot of people bitter lessons, and people are really, really ready to come out and vote. Having said that, about 2 hours ago, I was just reading a report that about election sequence in Nigeria, that appeal court upturned the judgment of High Court initially to have given INEC verdict from the election sequence. And sincerely speaking, I think I support the decision or the judgment from the appeal court, because our Senate their responsibility is to make laws. And if in their own wisdom, the Senate has amended the electoral law to provide situation where election sequence can be rearranged, for me, I stand with that. And sincerely speaking, I will want the presidential election, all the elections, to be separated, and let the presidential election, let it come last. Let it come last, so that everybody, you will fight for your own election. For example, many of those in the Senate, in 2015, the Senate, the House of Rep and the Senate and the presidential election was done the same day. So it was like an override for most of those senators, because as at then, Buhari was the in thing. Everybody was voting for Buhari. So the same people that voted for Buhari voted for the Senate, voted for the House of Rep, and that was why all of those who are in the House today, senators, they rode on Buhari's back to get there. So I will support a situation where the elections is staggered. Let everybody fight for his own seat. Let the Senate election be separated from the presidential, be separated from the government, so that on the day of the election, we will know who is who. Who am I voting for?
Sorry, I'm going to interject again. As it's all breaking. Just in, Afsat Abubakar, Kano Deputy Governor, leaves APC for PDP. That is the breaking news, as also is happening right now. lot of breaking news.
This is just the beginning. I told you earlier that this is just the tip of the iceberg. What is happening? A lot more will happen.
And we also know the president, Buhari met with, Oshomole, the APC senator, as well today. I'll let you continue.
Sorry, Yomi. It's unfortunate. I keep saying Shil. It's unfortunate, Yomi. It's unfortunate. It is too late. See, the greatest mistake APC has made is to elect Oshomole as the party chairman. Oshomole is someone who is careless with talk. Oshomole is somebody who is arrogant. Oshomole is somebody who does not care about the feelings of others. A leader must care last of his own feelings. He must take others' feelings first. Oshomole is the opposite. A leader must be careful of his talk. Must watch what he says, when and how he says it. Oshomole is the direct opposite. Oshomole will wreck APC. Mark my words.
Wow.
So the defections, this is just the beginning. This is
and I'm sure your very good friend that was kidnapped and hopefully spent. Okay, it looks like we haven't got him there back. Okay.
Just the beginning. More will happen.
Okay. Also, on the Twitter feed of the Senator Dino Malaye,
I can tell you that.
Senator Dino Malaye, nothing they happen.
Go ahead.
God pass man.
Dino is somebody I know very well. I've known Dino now for about 28 years. Dino is somebody I know very well. We were friends in DB Uzaria. He was in geography while I was in chemistry. We know each other. So we were both student activists in school, student politics, and the rest of them, even in NANS and all those things. So Dino is somebody I know very, very well. So, like I said, I am not a PDP person and I'm not an APC person. And I will not support any of them because they have all contributed to looting of this nation. And I will not support any looter. Sincerely, I will not.
Okay, it also looks like Mama Taraba will be going back again to contest for the governorship. A letter that she requests for permission to contest for the governorship of Taraba State in the 2019 general election under our great party, the APC. And that is one and only Senator Aisha Jumai Ali Hassan, the Minister for Human Affairs and Social Development.
Well, it's a constitutional right, so she should exercise it. It's welcome. She will be glad to see the first female governor elected. So she should go ahead about it. And see, Yomi, I heard that the president again is right now on his way to UK for 10 days.
That's correct.
I mean, it's you see, the truth, the president is just giving himself a lot of headache. This man is not healthy. It is simple. This man is just not healthy. Should I make a prediction? Sorry, Yomi, should I make a prediction?
I am listening.
I do not see President Buhari contesting 2019 elections.
Wow. Is that in a dream or is just something you just saw right now in a vision?
A prediction.
A prediction.
I do not see him contesting the next election.
And what will happen? Because he's the main person that a lot of the
he's not healthy.
Well,
he's not healthy.
But we don't have that evidence to prove that. He hasn't said anything about his health.
He should do himself a great good by just going to rest. He should just do himself a great good. He has done his best. He has done his best. Sincerely speaking, he has done his best, and we appreciate the best he has proffered into this nation. And we have seen it, and we are now saying, thank you very much. You have done your best. Your best is not good enough for us going forward.
Wow.
Okay, so I mean, he is somebody's father. I wish him, sincerely speaking, I wish him good. I mean, good health. I wish him to be alive. I wish him a quick recovery or soonest for him to recover as soon as possible. But he himself should help himself.
Wow.
To lead this nation, Yomi, it is not an easy task. It is not. So we need somebody who is young, somebody who is agile, somebody who is strong, somebody who can stand the pressure. You understand me? It's obvious. It is obvious. The president is weak.
Wow.
Weak.
Wow. Quite telling.
He's weak in health. For goodness sake, Yomi, how on earth, sorry, Yomi, how on earth will the president come out openly and publicly and says that the IG disobeys him publicly, not once, not twice? Yet the same IG, he is still the IG. The president is weak.
Wow.
Why will the IG now in Benue, the police gave 8 lawmakers police protection out of an state assembly of about 28 people, 27 people. Police gave 8 of them police protection to impeach a governor, and the president is saying that he is not aware of it. So who gave the police order? Who gave that order? The Commissioner of police was interviewed. He said, "You above. Who is that above that gave that instruction, that gave that order for police protection on 8 members?" I mean, the president is just simple. Who does the IG report to? Who gave that order? The president is weak. He's weak. Not only in health, he's weak. He doesn't have the control. His wife said it 2 years ago, and nobody took it serious. He said the husband is not in charge. It is obvious now. The president is not in charge. If truly the president is not aware that, I mean, he didn't give the order, then which means the IG is
the order.
As the president. So so which means the IG is the president. He gives himself the order and carries the order out if the president is denying the IG.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So the president is not doing himself a real good by just going to Daura and just rest.
Well, maybe that's the reason why the president is coming to take some rest in London. We will find out that. Just before I let you go, a lot of things are happening. Just give us your closing remark, and I'm sure we will definitely be connecting with you back next week. I can also tell you that Star Radio UK will be fully on ground. I will communicate that with you because as the election is getting closer, we are also preparing to be on ground, to cover as much of the areas of this election and all that. But just your closing remark before we let you go now.
My closing remark again is to solicit for support of those in diaspora. I mean, campaigning for elections in Nigeria is not a child's joke. I mean, it's not a joke. It's not a child's play. So I want to encourage those in diaspora, those in Nigeria, and those around the whole world to please support the second order. And when I mean second order, I mean the young Nigerian against these looters in PDP and in APC. We need a young person to take over the leadership of this country. And I am saying it loud and clear to the whole world. I, Femi Adeyanju, will fully and will be in the forefront of a young candidate that is a coalition of young Nigerian to contest against this old order. So I plead to everybody, support us, support the young Nigerian, and that is the way to go. And for sure, we will not let you down. I tell you the honest truth. I have seen the manifesto of some of them. In fact, I have the manifesto of Showore, and I've gone through it. I made a few contributions. I have seen for the one for Duro, for Fela too, and I've seen a whole lot of others. I tell you the honest truth. I tell you the honest truth again. When the campaign really starts and we roll out this manifesto, you will know that the young Nigerians are truly and genuinely ready to lead Nigeria to the next level, and I believe it will happen.
Wow. Thank you very much. All the way again from Lagos, our contributor there, political, that tell us what is happening, and we will definitely be back with you same time next week. And half an hour with you doesn't even seem enough, but we've spent 29 minutes, 5 seconds. Thank you very much all the way from Lagos. What
It's cool. It's cool. Very cool. Very cool now. Very cool.
Wow.
No sun, but the rain, slight showers in the morning. But it's cool.
Wow. Thank you very much all the way from Lagos. Thank you very
much. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Well, you can see that we move around. We tell you, what is happening, in not only in Nigeria, also what is happening, in Lagos. Maybe, we might also we might connect with one more, but let's just go straight first to Lagos back again, and let's speak to one and only David Duarte. Let's hope we can get him as quickly as possible, and then we can bring him live onto to tell us, yes, we've got him live. We've got that man that loved dancing. That man that loved dancing. Thank you very much. You're live on air. I can tell you that now. For those of you that might not know this man, when it comes to... Hello, David?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. This is a man that has passion. He sleeps in it. He dreams in it. He swims in it. anything that's got to do with football. Not just the passion that we've just come up on the phone with someone in Lagos that has passion with the political. This is one man that has passion for football. And I can tell you, live and direct is in Lagos. I'll let you carry on, Mr. David Duarte.
Good evening, sir. Mr. Koigi. Thank you very much for your support. We saw your men on ground. Benga was on ground with us. Did a good job. It's been a wonderful day today. We had a good turnout from the young people, 16 teams, and a lot of support from people outside. And then few of our supporters like Tasty, AfriPay, and Ali Foundation were also awesome as well.
Okay. Well, those of us that know you're going to be in Lagos and you're doing your own little bit. Just again, I know we spoke to you just prior before you left. Just to recap, why are you in Lagos? Because sometimes when we tell people that we have the diaspora that are passionate, that are moving around, not just in Lagos, some are moving to Edo, they're doing a lot of things, in Nigeria. What actually, left a whole, London to go to Lagos on what reason?
I think it's simple. What we're trying to do is to see what we can do to help develop grassroots football. It's been something that we've had, so many years be talking about, nagging about, and we thought it's time to put an action to it. And we've been trying to do that with the body that represents football in Nigeria. But it seems it's not forthcoming. They are not willing to let it happen. So we decided to take another route using an option that we have left, which is option B. And we sat down brainstorming for the past 3 years before we managed to conclude on what we wanted to do. We've done all plans. And then we did the unveiling with the press conference that we had on Saturday with a lot of press people. Is in Nation newspaper, Vanguard, Guardian, The Sun.
Okay, well, we're still waiting for Mr. David Duarte to connect back with us. Yeah, he's back with us again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the whole idea is to combine sports with education, but not just combining it with education. We have to try and do something to stand us out, which is our USP, is to ensure we add something that has to do with training, work placement, internship with various companies. Those are the angles. So it says Sports Edu Plus. That is what the Plus we do. Is a 3-year program that we'll be doing with schools, mostly private schools. And then if young people from local schools also are welcome to take part as well, we can do it. We can deliver it with local schools if the states or if corporate bodies can sponsor the program in terms of young people coming on it. But also what that would do is to allow these young people to have something like a backup, not just relying on playing football. There's a lot of young people that wants to play the game, but the question is how many of them will go ahead and become a professional in it? Can they stay around media? Can they work in the coaching department? Can they work in the hospitality department? Can they do other things around it? There's not just coaching, not just football. It's so many training program. The young people can then be sent out in the last final year of the program, which is the 3rd year, that involves the internship or volunteering, whereby they can be given some forms of stipends towards their transportation while they're learning. And maybe a year or two, the company can decide to employ these young people as full-time. So that's what we're trying to do, so that young people could have something as a backup. That won't stop you from being a footballer, but at least you have something as a backup, as an alternative to you just wasting time waiting that you'll play one football one day and the time is fast going. So that's the platform that we're trying to provide. So we're doing that with the FA in England. So that will be combined and then put together here. So it's still a lot of work, but we have unveiled it, and we are working quietly behind the scene. and then we will release when the program will start running in schools and the schools that we've actually spoken to. Yeah, we've already had Grange. Grange is one of the biggest schools in Lagos. Is in the mainland in the Ikeja area, GRA. So yeah, we've been in contact with them for the past 8 months, 6 to 8 months, discussing to and fro. We've had meetings with them. So a lot of work is going behind and some other private schools, but also local schools are very, very important. And also we are working ways to get sponsorship for them to come on the program as when we kickstart.
Wow. You mentioned something that I believe is the way forward now, and which is not everybody will be able to play football. Just over the weekend,
Yes.
if I can recollect, or maybe during the week, or I think over the weekend, I asked my young son, 11 years old, I said to him, what do you want to be? He said, I want to be a footballer. I said, well, then what happened if that football doesn't come true? And right there, he was saying to me, he wants to be an architect. And I said to him, start thinking of what you can invent. And this is where we must be able to tell the youth right now that yes, you might have passion for a football to be a footballer because there's quite a lot of wealth around it. But what happens, and you putting an education around it, I think we should give a kudos to you. Before we let you go, I know you've had a long day. You need to take a rest.
Yes, sir.
A good remark before we let you go.
Come again, sir.
What will be your final closing remark before we let you off?
It's just to say we encourage everyone to try and look at ways they can also do something back home. People are saying Nigeria is bad, but at least there's still some good Nigerians. We've met some wonderful Nigerians through our stay here in Lagos, and also we hope together we can all do something wonderful to empower young people, especially in the areas of job. There's a lot of graduates, looking for job, PhD holders. So this is what we're trying to create through sports, so that young people can get job within and outside football. So I think we should all come back and think of trying to do something back home. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of areas that we can tap to that won't disturb anybody. Yeah, so I think I'll just encourage everyone to try and do something as little as they can. It's really goes a long way. Yeah,
Wow. Thank you very much, all the way from Lagos. I hope you've been eating a lot of amala and eba and all these nice.
Definitely, we've been doing that in Shita. That's my area.
Amala Shita. Say thank you
Amala
to
Shita, yes,
also all the team that travel with you, and we continue to pray for you, and we continue to keep up as well. Have a good evening, Mr. David Duarte.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir.
Wow, as you can see, Niger Voices making things happen. Also, thank you very much, Mr. Kasobaba. He was also streaming from the protest about the windrush that was happening, today, and he said to me, back home now from Westminster, also thank you to Mr. Femi Babalola. Very soon, this man will be coming live on the Starr Radio UK. But before we do that, let us go straight to Lagos or Abuja, where also, if you remember, we had, let us see if we can get through we had a governorship aspirant that was in the building with us about a few weeks back by, Mr. Yes, let's go live. Hello. Hello, good evening. It's loud and clear. Good evening to you, Mr. Dan Bolaji Oyeleke. And for those of you that are listening to us, he's the chairman of the Welfare Party. Maybe if you want to reduce the other device that you are listening from and just focus only on your WhatsApp, because we can hear you clearly and you'll be able to respond back from the WhatsApp call rather than listening from any other device that you might have around you there. So maybe you might want to just mute that or reduce it to the barest minimum. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Dan Bolaji Oyeleke. Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Koiki. Thank you for putting me on. I'm very grateful. Thanks so very much.
You're more than welcome. And for those of us that are also, like I did mention earlier on, Welfare Party as we have them, we've interviewed the chairman before. We also had an interview live when I was in Lagos. We also have one of the governorship aspirant for this political party. I will let you take it from there, Mr. Dan Bolaji Oyeleke. Tell us a little bit more in about a few minutes before we end up this Niger Voices tonight. What is happening with Welfare Party?
Thank you so very much. Like I said earlier on, we really appreciate you. We thank your station for always carrying us along. Without wasting much of our time, Welfare Party of Nigeria is becoming an emerging political party in Nigeria. And by the grace of God, very, very soon, the name will be a household name in Nigeria political terrain. I want to say to date, we have gone through this series of registration processes with the independent national
with us. That is a long distance call. That is the problem with the network in Nigeria. These are part of the reason why we must we can still hear you loud and clear.
And by the grace of God, we are hopefully going to promote the political parties that present come 2019. One of the things about us to that when you want to identify us, just look out for any political party with a standing low. That is, and that low comfort. The now economy is heated up. We are with our own comfort. Welfare them is. Hello.
We can hear you. Continue. We can still hear you loud and clear.
Hello.
We can hear you loud.
Hello?
And we can hear you loud and clear.
Hello.
We can still hear you loud and clear. Okay, this is we can still hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, like I'm saying. I said welfare is a political party. It to be also in Nigeria. 2019. We will present our candidates, even for the presidency, to the governor, National Assembly, House of Representatives, and House of Assembly, in particularly most of the states. I want to tell our people, the lovers and followers of Welfare Party of Nigeria, that what they should look at is the logo, and that logo is the standing fan. When it's time for us to begin to vote, just look for a political party with the logo of the standing fan. And we want to assure you that we have fair facilities to the doorstep of every Nigerian. This political party is basically for the Nigerian masses, and we want to change the entire system. Everybody will benefit from the dividend of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much. All the way from Abuja there. We will continue to bring you all the, like we did mention as well, all the young presidential aspirants were all meeting yesterday and day before yesterday in Abuja. We'll continue to follow all the development back home, and we will keep every one of you up to date with what is happening, not just only in Nigeria, but also what is happening in other African countries. So make sure you continue to stay tuned so that we can give you, all that is happening. And it's, there's quite a lot of things happening, but the question mark is, where will you be, if you are not taking any action, if you're not taking any role, and you're waiting for, maybe someone else to come and deal with our problems, our issues. We've got to remember that we have, huge task ahead of us. And some of the task is, as my guest this evening did mention, is housing. Housing is one of the biggest problems, not only in United Kingdom, but also in Nigeria as well. As the election is getting closer and closer, what role are you going to be participating? What role? Are you just going to be a spectator? Are you going to be part of any movement, any political party of your choice. These are things that we've got to remember. Whether you live in the country or you live outside the country, Nigeria is our country. We don't have any other place than that, Nigeria. Whether you have other passport with you, one day, a generation will wake up from your own extended family and decide to move back to any part of, not just even Nigeria, but Africa as a whole. What role are you going to be playing, to bring, the peace, within Africa itself? A lot of us have waited for, miracles, and miracles is not going to solve the problems in Africa. Miracle is not going to solve the problems in Nigeria. Yes, there's a lot of issues. We've just had 3 different individuals that we spoke to on ground in Nigeria. We had, one of my very good contributor, Mr. Femi Adeyanju, that told us, what we should be expecting as the election is getting closer. We've just also spoken to, Mr. Oyeleke, that was telling us about, Welfare Party, as, they're moving forward and they're progressing. We had an interview with them, last year, and I also did one, with them in Lagos. We had one of their governorship aspirants. We've had, 3 presidential aspirants in this studio, and we're still working very close to make sure that we can bring every one of them, whether from the PDP or from the APC, to come and tell the Nigerians all over the world, what plans do you have? What are your manifesto? What is the reason why people should believe in you and vote for you? And the question I was asking is, will you be allowed, to allow the citizen, to take you off that position if you are not performing? These are the questions that we must also ask. But the question is, if you sit behind the fence, people will rule over you, and power is not given freely. Everyone must try whatever you have in your possession, whatever you have, whether you are, you have, skills in different areas. One thing, from the conversation I had, this evening, in the last 2 hours with Mr. Femi Adeyanju, they're asking a lot of the diaspora, to participate in this coming election. Make sure, you're working with any of the political party of your choice, as we all have a free will. Whether you still want to stick to the PDP, APC, Welfare Party, Green Party, and we're also waiting for more, the ANPP. There's over 68 political party. You've got no excuse. He also did mention to me that we might be seeing over 50 million Nigerians voting in 2019. And the question I asked him was, is INEC prepared enough for that? As we're wrapping up this show tonight, we will be back again same time next week, where we continue to update you what is happening within the country where we are, and also what is happening back home. There's a lot of issues at home, but we will continue to talk about it. Killings all over the place in Zamfara State, and we know the president will be in London for the next 10 days, and the vice president will become an acting president until the president comes back as well. Once again, you watching me tonight, what role are you playing to make Nigeria a better place? We saw Tokumbo's kitchen, giving, the taste of Nigerian food in South Bank. What role are you doing? What role are you putting in back? Thank you very much, my auntie, my big sister, Veronica, that has been doing our own little bit. Do your own little bit, and the world will be a better place. Well, from me, I'm going to sign up now, and I say it's been another beautiful, thank you very much, all the way from Lagos in Surulere. I'm going to talk about this, before I go. Mrs. Laja Adedoyin, for the last 15 years in December, I'm going to be in Lagos as well, and we're going to be celebrating it together. Heart of Gold, in Surulere, looking after so many children. I was there myself, I was sent there by, our one and only Dr. Dayo Olomu with the wife. And I saw the hard work that Mrs. Adedoyin Laja is doing in Surulere. What an amazing woman. 15 years, she has been taking care of children that have become like a big family for her. That is the kind of role that we all should be playing. And like David Duarte was saying, don't think everybody in Nigeria is a fraudster, because we're a great nation, we're great people. like Alistair Shaw, they will always say, great people, great country. And that is the reason why I move around with my crystal green, white, green, just to indicate I'm from Nigeria. Once again, as usual, my name is Olayomi Koiki. And as we're checking out, there's one man, may his soul continue to rest in peace, Raskimono. We will play Raskimono and we'll end the show tonight. And we'll be back again, same time next week, where we will continue to give you up-to-date information, what is happening. Yes, Out of Gold Children Hospice, one and only Mrs. Lajade Doyin. 15 years, we're going to be celebrating what she has done in the lives of these children. I saw them myself, and that video is already on my timeline. Wherever you can find it, I will pull it back one day, and you could be able to see some of the hard work that she's doing. Let us listen to Raskimono to end the show tonight. Once again, as usual, things might not be the way you want it, but as long as you don't give up and you hold on to it, whether you pray or you don't pray, but the most important thing is believe in what you want, and one day it will definitely happen. Once again, good night. Thank you very much for those of you that have stayed tuned from Lagos to Abuja. That is the beauty of technology. And do you know you can now take in 4 WhatsApp call on a conference call? This is the way they are thinking. Nigerians must start thinking like that so that we can solve a lot of the problem back home. Yes.
Online, on mobile, Swan DAB. This is Star Radio UK, the leading African Caribbean radio station.
under pressure, Nigerians under pressure, Africans under pressure. No food, be we belly, no money in our pocket, no bed, below we ate. The people, they must suffer in a ghetto, in a city, everywhere that me go, me see them. Some are cry, some are die, some are weeping, some are wailing, everywhere that me go. Under pressure we well, under pressure everybody under pressure black and white, under pressure Europeans, under pressure. Can't get no food if you go feel we belly. Feel it in the YouTube, no have no mother. Feel it in the YouTube, no have no father. Feel it in the YouTube, no have no brother. Feel it in the YouTube, no have no sister. I'm a kimono, me just start chatting to you. Chanta this, I want me not go chat it all day. Hey, under pressure we well, under pressure Europeans, under pressure Africans, under pressure Nigerians, under pressure.
They give us a name and then call we need also. In a wheel and we don't look at the careers. They call us terrorists but we are freedom fighters. They call us murderers and then we go prisoners. They kill we brothers and I kill we fathers. They rape we sisters and I rape we mothers. They give each other come together. They want to be the blacks master. They know what's happening.
Busy boy, make me dance. Daddy, oh, make me dance. Star boy.
Them see how we go, then I see we silver. But they cannot see we call and culture. See them come out, it's a propaganda. They want us to fight against one another. No matter what they do, me not go turn it for man. No matter what they say, me not go turn a murderer. Me no buy a gun, fish that me brother.
Daddy, oh, make me dance. Busy boy, make me dance. Daddy, oh, make me dance.